This is the Partner for Leads Biz podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs. It's a podcast for those of you who want to build your business in a smarter, relationships-first way. Edge of Arlington Saw and Tool was founded in 1997 by my guest for this episode, Thom Snellings. The business provides new tool sales and service to the wood and plastic manufacturing industry. Thom and the Edge of Arlington have developed a specialty in something known as CNC tooling. Our acquaintance goes way back. It goes back to high school, in fact. Thom and Edge of Arlington have a great story. The business has outlasted its competitors, outmaneuvered big industry companies, and found growth during 2 economic downturns. Big takeaways and points of discussion include debt aversion and the importance of cash, as in cash is king. Thom also explains how he's grown and fended off competition by supporting small startups in the space. He learned long ago that his best customer is a knowledgeable customer. This has driven him to constantly learn about his industry. His goal has always been to be the most knowledgeable resource on relevant technologies and advancements. It has all paid off. Edge of Arlington Saw and Tool has become one of the best-known companies in tool sales for wood and plastic manufacturing. Here is me and Thom. So before we started recording, you reminded me that Edge of Arlington has been in existence for about 22 years. Is that right?
That's correct. January 1st, 1997 is when I opened my doors.
That is amazing. And we've known each other longer than that. I was thinking about it when I contacted you recently. And I think I was in high school, right? We were at that age, right?
Yes.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, back in the 70s.
And, yep. So you said something funny also before we started recording that about your criteria for starting a business, and when what you said was funny, but I bet there's probably more to it. But share with my listeners what you said, and then if there are other things that come to mind as far as why you chose to go into the business that you did, I'd love to hear about those too.
All right. Well, I always wanted to own my own business, but the problem is, what do you do? It's not enough just to want to open a business. You got to find something that somebody wants to buy. So I set a list of criteria. I wanted something, that I could make money on, but I didn't have to work all the time, 24 hours a day, be on call or something of that nature. And one of the big things is I didn't want to work on the weekends. And so I chose a business where, we traditionally aren't open on the weekends. So I had to run a route. And so I didn't want to work running a route 7 days a week and then, just have nothing, no time to do paperwork, no time to do anything. Because when you're a small business, you start out, you do it all. And eventually now I don't have to work on the weekends at all. Now I got, like 15 employees and, we get it all done during the day and I don't have to go in and work 24 hours a day. And that's been really nice. As far as how I got into the business I am in, we sell and service tools to woodworkers, furniture manufacturers, plastics, metal, et cetera. And after college, my first job was working at a pool place as a manager, and I didn't like that. And then I was hired over at Texas Carbide Service, and I knew absolutely nothing about saw blades or router bits. I thought, there was just one. And, so I just kind of got hooked into that industry. And so years later, when my employer lied to me and cheated me, not Texas Carbide, but another one, in a similar business, I just decided to go into that business myself because that's what I knew. And so I looked at it and I'm like, well, this industry is dominated by a lot of big service companies, but what is their weakness? You have to have something that you can offer, to the client that's above or different than what they're currently getting. And what I decided is, well, they did service, but they didn't really stock a lot of new tooling. And when you look at the P&L, you see the new tooling's like 50%. So it just didn't make a lot of sense except for the fact that the service end of it was very capital intensive. So you put a lot of money in there, you don't have a lot of money to put in inventory. And also they were not computerized. They had no idea what they were, what they sold and what they didn't. So basically a customer would call up and they would need something and they'd have to order in next day air. And, a lot of times the air freight was as much as the tool.
Wow.
So what I decided to do is go into the same business, but instead of concentrating on the saw blade and the service end of it, I sold new tools. And then I went to my first employer, Texas Carbide, and I said, I thought if I bring my service to you, and what kind of discount can you give me? And he gave me like a 30% discount, and that was awesome. I wish I could do that today because, at the end of the day, I don't usually have 30% left. There's the cost of the employees and the insurance and, the franchise taxes and, the product itself and shop supplies and machinery and interest. It just, gets eaten up pretty good. But that enabled me to grow my business. And 7 years ago, when the owner of Texas Carbide decided to hang it up because of the company, I was able to merge with them. I bought all their assets and so forth and merged with them. And now we have it all and we could do it all. And now instead of hiring a bunch of outside salesmen, I do have my salesmen that work for me. But I'm doing more. I'm reaching out more into the internet. I have a really nice website, eoasaw.com, and have thousands of parts. I have a person that works 30 hours a week doing nothing but putting new items on it. And then there's a couple of other people in the industry that work for my competitors, and they just get tired of working for somebody else, and they want to go out and do it to start their own as well. But they know how much it takes to do that. And so I set them up in business where they go out and they pick it up. And then, I give them a 30% discount and let them build their business just like mine. Just the same way I did. And it seems to be working quite well.
How long have you been doing that latter part where you're helping the entrepreneurial types build their own business like you did yours? How long has that been going on?
Well, in some small part, almost since the beginning, I was selling them predominantly, new tools because, that's what I was specializing in. But 7 years ago when I took over Texas Carbide and have all their manufacturing and service facilities, then I was able to offer that as well. And that's when it's really got better. And then a lot of the other places, you just have to, if you don't do anything, you're going to lose clientele through attrition. Over the years, people go out of business. You deal with a certain purchasing agent, and then they leave, and the agent comes from another, manufacturer in a similar business, and they bring their own guys with them, and, boom, all of a sudden you're out. You have to, continually evolve. If you don't evolve, then you die. And so you have to look for new opportunities. Of course, the internet is great, but there you have to make a decision. Am I going to be cheap or am I going to do a value added? Because if you're going for just bottom dollar and you're going to be the cheapest, you're never going to go anywhere. You have to figure out what you can add. And in our case, it's knowledge. And my best customer is a knowledgeable customer. So I don't want to just sell you a tool. I want to be sure that you're getting the most out of it. And if I get it in and I see indications that you've run it too long or something like that, it's my job to tell you that. If I see it's burned, I need to tell you, that you need to, adjust your feed rate or your RPMs or whatever. And, you just do what's best for the customer and everything else will work out itself. That's been one of our philosophies.
You mentioned something at the first part of your answer where you reflected on the P&Ls of I guess the businesses, the companies you'd worked with, and them not making sense. It made me want to ask you to talk a little bit about your college degree and how, I suspect knowing you, in fact, if I was a wagering guy, I'd bet some money on what your answer is more or less going to be, but I suspect that it played a big part in your ability to do what you have done. Can you talk a little bit about your degree and any continuing education that has lent itself to helping you grow?
Well, when I first graduated high school, I was not ready for college, so I didn't really I went to UTA Arlington, University of Texas Arlington, and that first semester, I was working and I was tired. I really didn't want to put my heart into it. And, I made like C's and stuff. I've always been an A student. So I let out for a year. And at the end of the year, I went to the local community college and got my associates. And I did that mainly because I didn't want to graduate with a bunch of debt. And the community college is a lot cheaper. So I was able to work and pay as I go. And got all that stuff out of my way, all the biology and English and math and everything. And then I transferred to UT Arlington at the major in business management. And at first I didn't know what my major was going to be. I knew it was going to be something in business, but you generally just figure it out. And I made sure that with my electives, I wanted to choose electives that would do something for me to further my goals. So I took a lot of economics. I took a lot of accounting. Took some math classes for, just to brush up on stuff like that. And graduated in, I think it was 84, 85. And after that, I was working, helped to start a tool company down in Waco. And I was working till about 5, and I would leave there, and then I would drive for the hour and a half to Arlington, UTA, and 10 night classes, and go into graduate school.
Wow.
And I'd get back to Waco usually about 1:30 or 2 in the morning. And I did that for a year or so.
Were you living in Waco at that time?
Yeah, I was living in Waco. I lived there for about a year and a half.
Okay. And I'm only asking for personal reasons because I didn't even realize or didn't remember. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, after I left Texas Carbide Service, I was working in Bank of America in downtown Fort Worth, and I was working in the securities department in the basement, and I just absolutely hated it. And the old comptroller at Texas Carbide called me and told me they were starting a tool business similar to Texas Carbide down in Waco. And so they hired me, and I went down there and I actually set up the structure of the company, the pricing, the vendors, the inventory system, the computer system, and merged that company into the company they were taking over. And so I had some experience doing that already when I started my own. And then I worked for them for, up until 96, when it became quite apparent that they weren't going to live up to what they promised me when I came on board. So I left in September. I took off 3 or 4 months, and in that time, I organized my business, and then January 1st opened my doors. And what I did, since I had no customers, I didn't take any customer list with me or anything. I didn't need to. I knew who they were. So I just went to the Office Depot, and I got some software. One of them is called My Business Plan, and the other was My Mailing List. And I got those 2 pieces of software. And My Business Plan, I highly recommend for anybody wanting to start a business, because it actually asks you a lot of questions. You have to fill in your stuff. You think, it's going to be easy to find people to work. It's not that easy. In fact, that's one of the hardest components. And then with My Mailing List, I knew who my customers were. They were door companies. They were molding companies. They were truss companies, and stuff like that. So you just look up their SIC code. Everybody has an SIC code. Mm-hmm. And I pulled like a list of like 5,000 woodworkers in Texas. Then I did up a flyer, and because I wanted to appeal to a lot of different people, I made sure that it was not just real crowded, but had some graphics on it, especially on one side of it where they could see all the different types of tooling that I carried and stuff like that. So, it's right there on the outside. Tri-folded it and mailed it out. And people would see that and they go, oh, well, let's see, okay. I could use that, and they give me a call, and that's how I started.
And how long, I'm guessing, did it feel like things were took off rather quickly, or was it a bit of a slog for a year or two getting your first customers?
It was very difficult. I had never done outside sales before. I always did inside sales. I'd done some little calling on the telemarketing before, but that was about it. So, but to go out to somebody you don't know and present something to them is a lot easier if they know you're coming. And that's where the flyer came in. You could sit there and canvass the neighborhoods, canvass the business parts, whatever you want, but you're going to hear 100 no's before you get one yes. So that's what the marketing, what the mailing really, really helped me with. But so you got to make sure that you do it in such a manner as to grab their attention immediately, because when I'm pawing through my mailing, my mail at night, if I don't know them, they go right in the recycle bin. They don't even make it in the house with me unless it catches my attention.
Right.
And I think other people are the same way. So,
is direct
where
mail,
the people are.
Is direct mail still a part of your business today?
I have not had to cold call or direct mail in quite a while because people know who we are.
Right.
And they know where we are. We've been in business for a long time. And then I absorbed 2 or 3 other little businesses, moved them in with me or whatever. That's one of the benefits of setting somebody else up in business and working with them and then taking your cut is when they hire, then, hey, you've got that business, boom, call it right back in. Or if they don't work outright because they have some personal problems, they get married 5 times, get divorced, 6 times, whatever, those don't affect you. And yet most of the people that, I had one person that was doing it, and they had been doing it for 10, 15 years, and they just got too much into, drinking too much kind of deal.
Oh my goodness.
And they just weren't taking care of business. So they eventually closed down, but all those people knew that I was doing the service. So when he closed down, where do you think they came? And in the meantime, it also keeps them from going out and starting their own little business and coming after yours. And so it's a win-win-win for everybody. And that's the best situation anytime.
You might have already mentioned this, but what gave you the idea to do that? Is it because did you say it was because someone had done it with you and prior to you having your own business?
Well, it's just kind of the way my business kind of model kind of developed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of developed that way because I was interested in the new tool sales. And I knew that I didn't have $1 million to go out there and buy all this equipment to compete with people that are international. I mean, we have people, all the international players are here in Texas, just right down the street. And so they got, multi-million dollars back there to go buy, the best and to hire 50 people, and I'm have to compete against that. Mm-hmm. But, what I did is I educated myself on everything that I needed to. It's like, okay, it used to be a long time ago that you would have, let's say a display manufacturer who makes all the displays for the stores or for little kiosk in the malls, or your exhibits that has, or you go to the trade show and all those booths and all that, they all have specialty people that do all that. And I just lost my thought, Robert.
You know what? I was laughing just recently on a call like this because and I'll say what I said to the person I was talking to. I said, "Oh, thank God it's not just me."
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what's hilarious is I had a question in my mind that I wanted to ask, and it's already gone.
All right, go ahead. All right, I'll think back my point, and I'll get back to it.
Okay, and maybe I'll get back to the one that I had on the tip of my tongue. But so we were talking about how your business had kind of formed through this model that you've taken on to, and maybe I'm going to refresh your memory here. I'm actually trying to work on refreshing mine. Now I know what I wanted to ask about, so I'll make a note here. But I think I'll buy you some time and get you back on track. You said you decided to educate yourself on everything you needed to know, and you I guess you were getting into a little bit of minutia. You talked about I don't mean that in a bad way, but you were talking about displays like at trade shows and exhibits, and,
yes,
and that
the different types of customers, and that's my train of thought just came back. I know where I was going with that.
How's that as an interviewer, right? I mean,
there you go. Well, it's like you had
continue.
all these big companies building all these kiosks and exhibits and stuff, and they would have 40, 50 people out there who were true woodworkers and true craftsmen, and they would have their own tools, and they would have their own router and sanders, and and most of them they'd be union groups, and so you'd have probably 10 or 15 table saws out there, and probably 100 different routers and tools and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all changed. You can get one CNC router will replace 20 or 30 people. And that's what I've seen, and that's really hurt others in this industry. But for me, it became growth, because when CNC routers were introduced back, and they had them in the metal industry, but never in the wood. And the main thing is controlling the heat on the tool. And in metal, you can put coolant on it. In wood, you can't. So you have to develop. It's developed different geometries of the tools and different materials, and so forth. And so that always really interested me a lot. And so that's what I did. Is I specialized in that. I learned everything I could about CNC. There wasn't a CNC manual anywhere as far as woodworking or plastics or anything. Nobody would really put anything in writing. Nobody really knew anything. And when you're cutting a piece of metal, you can look in a book and it says, "Oh, turn this RPM with this tool, and take this chip load." Not so in others. Every cutting situation is different. Mm-hmm. You had, depending on the geometry of your cut, the type of material you're using, the geometry of your bit, all of it together, and it varies. I mean, metal's going to be the same no matter what. But if you take wood and it's got a little bit of moisture in the air, you get some warpage and, and stuff like that. So all those different factors, come into play. So I just made sure that I knew more than anybody else on that. And if I found anybody that knew more, then I tried to learn from them. And so then I took and I wrote that manual, and that nobody else had. There's a couple of people who have done some now, but, I made it available. You can go to my website, eoasaw.com, and look under technical and download my CNC manual for free.
How long ago was that?
I wrote the first time. The first one probably in 2000 or something, and then I've updated a few times. I think the last time I updated was 2009. I'm in the process of updating it again now. I learn more, and there's new products that are available now. It used to be, you had some wood and you had a little bit of plastics. Now there are so many different forms of plastics and fiberglass and Kevlar, you name it. I mean, and everything in between. And some of the new laminates are metal laminates and so forth. You have to have the right geometry to cut it and really know what you're doing. And so I work with my customers. Somebody gets something new, I go over there and we play with it until we find out what tool works best, and then we we work from there.
You become a go-to guy. Obviously, and your website becomes a go-to place.
Yes.
So it sounds like a lot of new customer acquisition came by virtue of people just knowing that they could probably get educated on whatever it is they needed to get educated on by contacting you and your company. What about, I mean, did making that manual available for free, did that feed into what I just described, or did it open doors in a slightly different way?
Well, it does multiple things. First of all, I get really tired of repeating myself.
Yeah, sure.
I'm serious. 20-something years of, and I did it for 10 or 15 before that, but of repeating the same thing over and over can get tiresome, especially when you're trying to impart a lot of knowledge to somebody. They're not going to absorb it all in one sitting.
Sure.
So you just kind of go over the highlights and you give it to them something they can read.
Mm-hmm.
And most people set it over there. Yeah, you gave me that. I guess I'll look at it, blow the dust off,
Yeah, and at least you can tell them, go to this section and call me if you have questions.
Yeah, but then you have the customers that actually read it and that they understand it, and they use that knowledge to increase their productivity and to reduce their errors, and that translates into more money for them, and it can make a huge difference. I mean, if you're selling, let's say you're selling furniture, wood furniture, and you could sell all the wood furniture you want, but you can't produce it because you don't have the right tools to do it. You got all the wood you need, but you got all the machinery you need, but you don't know how to use it properly. So every time you make a cut, do a shelf or something, it's chipping out. And then you got to spend it over here, sometime putting it and sanding it. Instead, if you knew what the right saw and the right everything and had the situation correct where you could cut that flawlessly every time, then it just goes to cut to ship. And, it eliminates, a lot of extra work. So you can actually help somebody save them thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So they naturally come to love Edge of Arlington and Thom Snellings. So they become often, I guess, long-term, if not lifetime customers.
I've had some of my customers have been with me since the very beginning. Some of them we grew together. Mm-hmm. Some of them I've watched bunches ago out of business. In the last few years, most of the big woodworkers in and around this area have gone out of business. They were the only ones that had the deep pockets to make it through the downturn, which we got hit really bad with housing. Sure. My industry got hit really bad. So the big guys with the deep pockets, they were able to go through the downtime, but they could not afford to finance the growth when it became the new time, and they ended up in trouble financially. And that's one of the things that, one of the reasons why I've done well is because I am debt adverse. So I'm not against getting debt. Like if I want to expand, if I want to go buy a machine, I'm not adverse to going out and financing it if I don't have the cash, but I'm going to make sure I pay that off in a timely manner. And if it's a 5-year note, I'm going to try and pay it off in 2 or 3.
So your debt position made the difference for you during the downturn? Is that the factor, or are there others?
No, in a recession, whoever has cash is king.
Yeah.
And so I was able to take advantage of that because, when I first started my company, I put myself on a salary. It was pretty much minimum wage, 40 hours. You have to know, this is one of the biggest reasons I see companies fail is because they have no idea what their costs are. They have no idea what their expenses are, what their cost to make a product. They sell their labor too cheap. You'd be surprised, but a lot of people sell their product too cheap. They sell themselves too cheap.
Sure.
To give an example, I have a friend that's an artist, and she would sell her paintings, and she was afraid to put any, I would consider a fair price. She sold herself too cheap, and she didn't sell very much. And I finally talked her into just sitting there. I said, why don't you just, instead of $50 on that, put $250 on that? And she did, and she sold it. She couldn't sell it, earlier, but because you were selling yourself cheap. So you'd never be afraid to make money. Of course, you don't want to, be so outrageous that, you're not competitive. But I sell at a level I can make money on. If I can't make money on it, I don't sell it. What's the point?
Right. You're reminding me of a quote I've had in an email signature that goes to this small business community that we were talking about earlier, and it's from someone I know named Chris Ducker, who lives in the UK, and he just says, I'm not the first to say it, but he says it quite eloquently: charge what you're worth and don't, in all caps, apologize.
There you go. That's a good quote.
Yeah,
it's true.
And so that trickles. It's. I love how you compared your own business and perhaps the business world you've been in, which is pretty sizable, to the artist. It's the same dilemma, and that's I think very helpful. There's something that popped into my head I wanted to ask you, and because a listener said it would have been interesting to know, but I think we've gotten some insight into it already, but it would have been interesting to know how Charlotte Walter, the chocolatier that you listened to the episode for,
right?
How she how she funded her business, how she financed it. So I guess the question for you, and there's probably stages to the answer, and I know you sort of answered. I think you answered your mentality a little of financing when you talked about your debt-averse nature as a business owner. But can you talk about how you financed in the beginning, and were there other stages of the business where you had to do
it? Yeah, financing it all begins with your personal finances. Because when you're a small business, it's even, I have a business that doesn't matter what I make, when I go to get a loan, they want to look at my personal finances. Even though it's a corporation, it's what they call a closely held corporation. Uh-huh. They want my personal finances. And it's a lot of that. It got really, really bad. With all the regulations they've had, it got to where there is no such thing as a true banker in any of the big banks. If you go to some of the little regional banks or local banks or something like that, you can find a real banker that you could sit down with that knows you. They'll look at your books or whatever, and they'll say, "Yeah, I can finance your receivables." Or whatever, you can work with them. You go to Bank of America or Compass or, any of those people, they're bankers, but they're not, they're more paper filler outers, they have because their sheet. Hands are so tied. The government has them tied about what they can do. Anytime the government interferes and guarantees this or does that, like when you buy your house, you buy your house, you get it financed with Bank of America. It doesn't stay financed with Bank of America. They turn around and sell it to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and then the government, so it's the same with just about anything you do. Now, it's very important, I think, that especially an entrepreneur take and develop their credit score. You have to do that by having credit. You have to establish credit. One of the best ways to establish credit is to get a gasoline card. Everybody needs gasoline. You buy gasoline.
Does that still work?
It does. Yeah, you buy gasoline. You pay it off every month. You got a revolving, but that's the key. Mm-hmm. You don't ever put anything on a credit card that you can't pay off at the end of the month, because that credit, that interest will kill you. Mm-hmm. But you develop that into. I got my first credit card when I was 18, and as soon as they would give me one, I got one. I have never been late on a payment. I make sure I don't buy more. There has been occasions where I've actually had to pay that exorbitant interest, but the better your credit, the lower your interest rate. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a really good credit, instead of getting an interest rate of 20-30% from these criminals out there, you can get one for 6 or 7%. And that's not bad.
And this goes back to the fact that most banks, regardless of what entity you may have established, want to look at your personal finances when you go looking for funding for your business. That's interesting. That's interesting.
It is, and it's very, very difficult when you're a business owner to separate your business from your personal. Mm-hmm. You can't get the money. Your interest rates are all varied, and so forth. And it's just very important that you do that. But it's also important that you set up the credit before you need it, because they won't give it to you when you don't need it. Because when you really, really need it, they won't give it to you. But when you don't need the money, they'll give you anything you want. So you set up that credit line, early, and you draw on a credit line, because you can get a credit line, and only pay on the money that you take on the credit line. So if you're in a business that's seasonal and you got 3 or 4 months that you have a lull for some reason, then you need that credit line to get you through that. It evens you out throughout the year.
Sure.
But when you can, you pay it off, and it's there for you to borrow on again.
And has that description or the means by which you go through any financing the business has ever done, has it always been the same? Meaning not much has changed. This still applies today as it did 22 years ago. Pretty much
still the same thing applies. Mm-hmm. The better your credit score, the more they're going to, fall over you to loan you the money, especially if they think you're going to, use it.
Yeah. So different topic. You said you have 15 employees. Is that right today?
Yeah. It depends on in the summer we hire some extras, but yeah.
And then the partners, the folks that you help kind of start their own businesses in that arrangement, that's separate, not including your employees, right?
Right. Yeah. No, there's 2 or 3 that have their own. Mm-hmm. And when I was going to retire, probably he wasn't going to retire this year, but this year I had to take on. We went through enormous growth spurt. Like I said,
this year.
In 2018.
What happened?
He who has cash is king, right?
Again. Yeah.
So you have to be able to take advantage of things when they happen. I had cash when Texas Carbide was going to close. I was able to take advantage of that. I had Ray called me. It was about 10 days before Christmas in 2011. And he says, I'm closing this down January 1st unless you want to buy it. And I said, well, Ray, I thought you liked me. That was my first comment. Because I had it pretty sweet, because I just got my 30%, and I didn't have to worry about, the shop. I didn't have to worry about the repairs. I didn't have to worry about it overtime. I made my 30% regardless what happened, And so I was like, that's really difficult. I've only got a couple of weeks to come up with the money. He said, yeah, just let me know what you want to do. I said, well, if I don't, then that's going to really hurt my business. So, let me think about it. So it's really difficult when you're talking about going out and borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's scary, even if that you're going to be okay on it or whatever, it's still, there's always that, what if it doesn't, it can ruin me kind of deal. But that's where it all comes out to, sometimes you just have to take a chance and believe in yourself. And so I had the money, and I went and did that. And then this last year, there's another friendly vendor that they did a lot of my high-speed steel stuff, my cold saws and metalworking tooling that they would sharpen. Well, after close to 50 years, family-owned business, 3 brothers didn't get along. One of them moves off and does his own thing, leaves the other two. The other two are fighting all the time. And they have some, they just weren't very good business people, and they were better in the shop. They didn't run the business. The brother that left was the one that ran the business. So they closed down after close to 50 years. And then it's like, what do you where'd all these customers go? They've been in business for 50 years. So I had worked with them a lot of years. They were a customer of mine, and they were a vendor of mine. And so they called me, and I got first shot, And so I pretty much bought a lot of their equipment, and then they gave me their customer list, and then they told everybody that would come by or call. We're no longer doing that. We're going to business here. Here's Tom's address over here. So that just really brought us into a whole new industry because we never really got that much into metal before we would have woodworkers that would happen to have a metal shop in the back or something. Now we're dealing with people that are making trailers, that are making missile containers, and all kinds of stuff. So it's very interesting, but you have to be prepared for that. And again, I had to go out and finance, again to buy a lot, and then some of their equipment was old, so I wanted to modernize it. That's get the latest to CNC, and that's really helped because I could either get all these old machinery and sit there and repair them and pay 2 or 3 people to work them, or buy one new machine that one person can run and that won't require repairs for another 10 years.
Yeah, wow, so, that's cool. The industry, the business continues to grow.
It does.
I'm looking at your library. So I found the CNC manual on
right.
eoasaw.com, and there's a bigger library. Did you produce most of that as well, or all of that?
No, a lot of that is just stuff, interesting articles I would read because I try and read up on stuff when, and I would doing research when I was doing my CNC manual and stuff like that. Just if I come across an interesting article I think will benefit somebody, I'll put it up there.
So I'm curious, if we just were talking about the CNC manual, which is clearly has been a valuable resource for your customers, that I'm curious why you don't ask for an email address for this.
I get a report of everybody that goes to the website as it is, but I never really crossed my mind, to tell you the truth. I passed out so many thousands of those. I've used that manual at trade shows. That was one of the things that really helped me when I first started my business. Trade shows in my business are generally regional, or they'll have the 2 national. One year will be in Vegas, next year will be in Atlanta. It's very, very, very expensive to do a booth there and all that. It's just kind of cost prohibitive for me, especially at my early stage. I could probably do it now, but at early stage it would be cost prohibitive. But that first year I was doing business, they decided to do a woodworking fair here in Arlington at the Arlington Convention Center. And they did that for like the first 4 years I was in business till they moved it to Dallas. And that really helped me a lot because I was able to take all of my tools and set them up in the shop and, hundreds of router bits and all these displays. I just tried to cram it with as much different tooling as I could. And that stood out so much apart from everybody else. I drew a lot of attention when they found that I was stocking it, then they're like, hey, you need a bit, go see Thom. He's got it. And even my competitors come and buy from me. I make them pay cash, but they do come and buy from me.
That's cool. Yeah. It looks like, I'm learning a lot about your business today, but, it looks like you have such a resource library. You could even have not that you have to charge for it or anything, but you could have like a membership type wall, just to help you know a little bit more about who's there and
right.
Perhaps tailor more stuff to them to, I guess, kind of keep them in the ecosystem and maybe discover new opportunities for you and them. But you have a nice library here, whatever you, even without all that, it looks really great. Looks really great. I bet.
Well, the website has been evolving. I resisted putting one out for many, many years because I could not put one out that I would be happy with. I didn't, if somebody wanted my address and phone number, they can find that in multiple ways. But about 10 years ago, or maybe 7 years ago, I finally found a platform that I could afford that had the technology that would compare to, probably not in the search engine part, but the structural part, that I could present it in such a fashion that, it would actually work.
Is that Thomas Web Solutions?
Yes, ThomasNet. They are more for business, and they have business to business. And anybody that is interested, they will do you a website for I think for free for certain sizes and stuff. But what I did is I went out and I wanted the electronic catalog. It wasn't enough just to have the website. Right. I wanted the electronic catalog, and that's what they were able to do for me in there. And if you go flip through that catalog, Robert, you'll see there are hundreds of thousands of parts in there. Yeah, and my sister Kat, she does the website for me. She's in North Carolina, and I send the catalogs to her, and she puts them in, and she works about 25 to 30 hours a week.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. Yeah, I know this is no small feat to display, manage, kind of control all the inventory online like that. And it's always changing too. So it's nice that you found a partner in those guys. Where are they based, out of curiosity? I probably can find out really quick, but are they local to you?
ThomasNet, I'm not sure. They do have a local agent that comes and sees me, yes.
That's cool.
It seems like they're up in New York or New Jersey or somewhere. But of course, when you're on the internet, you're anywhere, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And that's one of the things about the website. It just started out, I sell on Amazon, but I have a love-hate. I have a love-hate with Amazon in that I love being able to sell it, but I hate the way they treat their vendors sometimes. And the way that it's difficult to deal. You can put something up there. You can tell them, if you're a manufacturer, say, this is my minimum advertised pricing policy. And they'll say, okay. And then they sell it whatever they want, and they ignore your phone calls. So it's difficult, but that's why I spend my money on promoting me and my website. And just like when I started on Amazon, I was one of the first people that sold on Amazon.
In your space.
In my space, correct.
Yeah.
And so I put up a product on there, and when it got really big, and I became like in their top 100 companies on their platform, they sent me a little plaque, and that's all nice and good. But then they said, "Wow, Tom's making a lot of money. Imagine if we could get everybody to sell that." So they went and called all of my competitors and said, "Tom's selling this. You need to sell that and sell it to a cheaper." And then they went to then they go to the manufacturers and say, "Oh, look, you're selling a lot. You need to sell to us, and we'll sell, and blah, blah, blah." So there's some people, my vendors that I deal a lot with, do not sell directly to Amazon.
For
the
this
ones
reason?
that sell directly to, if they sell directly to Amazon, what the hell they need me for?
Yeah.
And you got to be careful. And a lot of people don't understand when they put them on these platforms, there's a lot of extra cost. You can't, you got the cost of your tool, and then you have the Amazon cuts and the fees and the returns and the, this and that. And you have to be able to make money on something. So find something that you can do, find a way to do it better than everybody else, know more about it than anybody else. And then, train your customers and give them the information they need and tools they need to do it, to use it profitably. And that's why you'll notice one of the, on my CNC manual, I think it says up there, was the cover there say, Robert?
Let's
still
see.
Got it up?
Yeah, I do. Let's see. I lost it, but I'm going to find it. I want to see what it says here. I lost it. It'll take me a second. Oh, here it is. On the cover?
Yeah.
It says selecting the right tool, maximizing machine time, finish, tool life, and profits.
Yes, because I'm not selling you a tool when you really get down to it. I'm selling you a cut, the technology to cut and to make the product. You could not care what the tool it is. You just have to know what you want is you want a finished product.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I can help you to get that finished product in an economical way. That's what I'm doing. I'm always upselling myself. I'm always justifying that extra cost to buy from me instead of buying to Amazon, saving $1.
Yeah.
But when you have a problem with that bit, but that's it. And everybody these days, I'm not knocking Amazon. It's got its place. But it is very difficult to compete with somebody like Amazon. And everybody in every industry competes with Amazon practically.
Yeah, I've heard, one thing I learned or heard maybe years ago now, and probably still rings true with being a reseller on Amazon or a seller on Amazon, is that you have to cultivate relationships with your buyers, which is what you've been doing all these years.
Yes.
So it's not just a platform to do all those nifty things they do. If from the seller perspective, you have got, and I really notice sellers that do this with me, and it's in little things like I immediately get this follow up from them. Like a lot of times I buy stuff on Amazon. I have, I couldn't tell you who I bought it from. It just came from Amazon, right? And other times I get this really personalized thing through the Amazon reseller, which is pretty smart. And outside of that ecosystem, another example I got, which I just have to share here today, I bought a piece of gear from a company called Sweetwater that sells music gear, and had it shipped. It was going to get shipped to San Francisco and brought to me by my wife, but the order and my wife missed one another, so I had it shipped here to Panama. And they sent me in my package. They sent me this incredible little postcard. And just some, I guess, company propaganda. But the postcard itself was really cool. It was just a thing, and an invitation to share, with a hashtag on Instagram and blah blah blah. And I was like, that's the touch that these guys work with. And they call me. I mean, I'm not even sure if Guitar Center has an online property anymore, but these guys, Sweetwater, they always have someone call me too, even if I haven't just bought something. So they're really going out of their way, like you probably have all these years. So we that went really fast. We've hit an hour. I want to ask you I want to ask you a stock question and see how well it applies. This will help me for future ones. I use this on another side of podcasting, but there are some similarities, and that is if you were starting your business journey over from the beginning, what, if anything, would you do differently?
I'd run.
Faster or run away?
Run away. I don't know. That's very interesting because, see, that's the beauty of life. You take one step and you don't know where it's leading half the time. Mm-hmm. Would I go back and change anything? Yeah. I probably would have let go of some certain things earlier. Maybe that's one of the most difficult things when you're a businessman as you grow. You have to learn what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then when you hire people, you have to hire people that are good at things that you're not, or that you don't want to do. And then you got to let them do it. And that's the hard part, is letting go, letting somebody else doing something that may be critical to your work, to your operations, knowing that they're going to make a mistake. And I have a saying around my place: the only time you're not going to make a mistake is when you're not doing anything. Right. It always drove me crazy when one of my employers, because I worked for many people before this, would get mad or get onto somebody or dock somebody for making a mistake. You can't do that. You have to go on, and from the mistake, you got to learn from it. Now, if they make the same mistake over and over, then, you just got a doofus and you need to get rid of them. But, and that does happen. That's one of the other things that's very difficult to do, is to know when somebody's not working out.
Mm-hmm.
Personality clashes are a poison to a business. If you have somebody that you're working with, you care for them, they can be related to you. Doesn't matter. You can respect them. But if they're sitting always, what I call stirring the stink around the place, and they're always bringing all their personal problems and distracting and bringing people down, then they're just poison. You need to get rid of them. And that's hard to do. And, I've had to do that with people that have been with me for, 6 or 7 years. And it just, things change, people change. Maybe you'll be happy somewhere else,
Yeah. Probably anyone who's been in business as long as you have has had to deal with this and done it in different ways. But, thanks for sharing both of those things. And there's a lot more we could talk about. Maybe we'll do a round 2 one of these days. I really appreciate your time. I know it'll be a helpful conversation for others to hear. And I hope that somehow, I just thought of this a moment ago, I hope somehow it'll be helpful to your customers, just as sort of something that, maybe they can learn something about you that they didn't know. And I can obviously give you all the stuff to to share that if it makes sense to do so. But thanks again. And for anyone who wants to find out more about your business, we mentioned it a couple times, but it's EOASAW.com, and that stands for Edge of Arlington, which is a very clever name. Thanks, Tommy.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, and good talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard today, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And if you have a couple of extra minutes, please leave a review. It helps this podcast, and more importantly, it'll help other small businesses and entrepreneurs find the podcast so that they too can learn from the trial and error, the expertise, the insights of successful business owners like you. Are you struggling to get the word out about your business? Struggling to get in front of the right prospects at the right time? Head over to partnerforleads.blog to join our community. As a member, you'll get an occasional email from me with tips, hacks, stuff I'm learning from guests of this podcast. This is all stuff you can use to grow your business. It's free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Ciao for now.